Hey folks, welcome back to the Beer Wrench Garage. And today I'm going to take you, or try to take you along on the journey to diagnose a weird little problem that this thing is having. This little gem is getting ready to go to its new owner. And before I can send it off, I got to fix this specific issue. And let me tell you what is going on with it. So this lady is having issues with the fuel tank door. And it won't release when you pull the button. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, it's a switch. Replace the switch. Let me tell you, I've done the switch. It's not the switch. I've gone back and I've replaced the actual flap motor, the little motor that pushes the fuel tank flap out. It's not that either. What we do have is likely a wiring issue. And I'm going to try to walk you through, as I walk through myself, to try to diagnose what's going on here. Did some research. There's a module inside the door called a door control module. And then there is another module here underneath the driver's seat called a comfort control module. That's what Audi calls the module that handles like the interior functions and whatnot. We have to ensure wiring integrity between the switch, the first module, and then the first module and the second module, and the second module and the motor that operates the fuel tank door. And then we can narrow it down to what the issue is. Now, I will give you a spoiler alert, or give you a spoiler here. This is what Audi calls the comfort control module. And when I replaced the fuel tank door and the switch, and neither of those things fixed the problem, I went ahead and had a spare comfort control module. I plugged that in, and that didn't do it either. So actually, both modules kind of coincidentally are the same exact part number. So it wasn't even a programming issue. So it's not, I don't believe the module is the problem. And I didn't mean to be a parts cannon, but like I said, the switch was pretty cheap, so it wasn't the problem. And I just got a new switch in there. And the fuel tank door motor, again, was really cheap. I grabbed one off the junkyard. And so, it was just cheap enough I could parts cannon those, because those were really the most likely culprits. This I wouldn't have bought otherwise, because other than I had a spare in there, and like I said, once you plug it in, it didn't do anything. The last thing I can kind of rule out the module with is, if we go back to the switch, if I do the gas release, no action. But if I do the trunk release right here, and I'm sure you can hear the click of the trunk opening. What's also interesting is, if you gotta listen real close here, but I'm gonna do the trunk release again and listen to the module. You can hear it clicking. So the module's working for the trunk release, but it's not for the fuel door. Now, could it still be bad? Yes. But like I said, we plugged this new one in and it didn't make any difference. So what leads me to believe is we have some kind of a wiring issue from either the switch to this module, or from this module to the fuel tank flap door. And let me walk you through how we can narrow this down. So what we're going to do here is a basic continuity test. I actually did what I think is a pretty good video on the concept of this, and I'll link it up here or in the description. So check it out. I think actually it was probably this exact car that I was working on as well. In any case, I've done checked all the fuses. I believe all the fuses are good to go, at least since I last checked them. So I don't think this issue is caused by a fuse. It's still, my hunch is wiring. So on this comfort control module, which I believe Audi calls a J393, I'm going to put the wiring diagram up here on screen so you can look at it for a second. But the gas tank control motor, which is the V155, I believe, gets power from this module, and the wiring that connects this module to that gas flat motor are on pins 3 and 9 of this 12-pin connector. So pin 3 is this one, and let's see here. Yeah, pin 3 is this first green and gray one, and then pin 9 is this green and purple one. And you can't see it here, but it has small little numbers on the black connector, says 3 and 9. So all we're going to do is we're going to connect the little lead from here to the connector. We're going to connect the lead on the multimeter here, and then we're going to connect the opposite end of the lead to the connector at the gas tank flat motor. And so that'll allow us to see if there's integrity in the connection from here to there, and that'll allow us to rule out the wiring from this point all the way back to the gas tank, and then we can concentrate on this area here between the switch in the door and the wiring coming to this module, which is again where my hunch is that the problem lies. But let me show you how this is going to get set up real quick. So there's a module connector here. We know pins 3 and 9. And we're going to come back to the trunk area. So this contraption here is the gas tank flat motor. And actually, let me show you real quick what it does. So this thing right there is the manual cable. And normally when it's working right, when you press that button in the door, the module sends electrical power to this motor, and it pushes back, which pops open your gas tank door. We are going to probe these two pins, these two wires, and it's the same wires. I don't know if you can see them on the camera. Same exact color wires, because they're the exact same wires that go from here to the module. And we're going to test both these wires to make sure the connection between the module and this connector is good. Once we have that done, we can rule out the wiring from here to the front and concentrate on the front. All right, so first thing I'm going to do here is set up my probe. And it doesn't really matter which one I do first, but we'll do 9, which is our gray and purple wire. Okay, I'm going to put our little probe in there, and then I'm going to connect a lead extension to this guy. And if you look down, you can see I'm using this really nifty lead extension accessory. I'm going to come back over here and do a similar thing to that connector. I'll show you in a second what that looks like. So I have our test lead into the terminal for that same color wire, the green and purple, here. And then the test lead at the module in the front of the car, same wire over there. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my digital multimeter, and I'm going to set it for resistance, and I'm going to tell it to screech every time there's continuity. All right, so I have it set to continuity and an alarm, so every time there's continuity in a circuit, it's going to screech. That just means the wires are intact. Now there will be some resistance. It should be some resistance, like, you know, some fraction of a ohm resistance on these wires. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect, and I don't think it really matters which side I connect to what. I'm going to go ahead and connect my black lead to this. Kind of set it aside so I'm not touching anything else. And then I'm going to bring my red lead, and remember, we're using this extension, right? So the extension is connected to the front of the car. Here's the lead to the digital multimeter, and when these two touch, we should get a screech if that'll tell us if that circuit is intact. Perfect. And I don't know if you could see the screen here, but you got 0.6 amps of resistance, which is exactly what that wire should be, as far as I know. All right, so we're good on that. I'm going to do the same thing real quick with the other wire, the green and, green and gray wire. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out the lead. Switch out the lead there. And I switched out the lead in the front. So again, we should do this thing and get the same result. And again, it shows continuity at 0.6 ohms. I'm going to turn this off. All right, so what we've done now is we've made our life a little bit simpler because we've ruled out any kind of wiring issues between this comfort control module and the motor at the back end. So now we just got to walk back the wiring from the switch in the door to whatever module lives here, and then back to this comfort control module and see where the wiring issue is. And just again, to reiterate, I did check the gas tank flat motor by powering it, by giving it power. I know it works. It's not a broken gas tank flat motor. We verified that the wiring from the module to the trunk was good, but just to give it that extra oomph and assure you guys that the gas flat motor isn't bad, I'm just going to send power through it, and if you listen, you'll hear it go pop. All right, so let me check some diagrams and then we'll come back. I went ahead and I ripped off the door card. So the next step in our diagnosis process is to make sure the switch, the gas tank switch, is talking to this door control module. So this door control module ultimately talks to that comfort control module. So we're trying to follow the signal from the switch to this module. The way we're going to do that is this. As you can see, I took the door card off. And the switch for the gas tank door is right here. Here's a spare one. And this is it. So this lives right here. And through this connector, ultimately to this connector, it talks to the door control module. So I looked at the wiring diagram, and I'll throw that up here right now. Pin 3 on this connector is a red wire, and it talks to the module through pin 9 on this connector. And you might not be able to see it, but these guys have little numbers that let you know what pins they are. So all we're going to do is set up the same test we did earlier with the continuity to make sure that when I hit this button, that signal goes to the module uninterrupted. And so we got pin 3 on here and pin 9 on there. And again, we'll set this up and put it to continuity with an alarm, and this will tell us if we're good. Yep. And in this case, we have 0.2 ohms of resistance because the distance this wire is traveling is much smaller, so you're going to have less resistance. Okay, so now we've ruled out any wiring issue between here and the door control module. Next thing we're going to have to do, again, we're under the assumption that this switch is good, because I told you, like I did, they're switched them out, tried both of them. So this is good. Now the next thing we need to do is trace the wiring from the door control module to the comfort control module. But one thing I find interesting is it looks like this module was replaced at some point. I'm assuming because it's integrated into the window motor, and the window motor probably went dead. But this module, this is junkyard writing. I didn't put that there. At some point, somebody did replace that. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is that the gas tank door switch, gas panel switch, the way that signal goes through this module and into this module is via this connector, this black connector, and I'll look up the pin. That signal goes through the door here, and this is where I'm suspecting some kind of an issue, because as it goes through the door here, sometimes these things will fray and catch a wire, and I'm wondering if that's an issue. So that's what the next leg of testing is. Make sure there is continuity, or there is a good signal between the door control module back toward the comfort control module. If all those tests are good, that's going to really put the suspicion on this module right here. So let's do a couple more tests and then try to make a diagnosis. Well, so we might have gotten to the end point in our diagnosis here. Let me walk you through what we've done. Obviously, we worked our way down to the door control module, and the door control module talks to the central control module through this connector. So this module, the harness goes through here, and then that connector plugs in to this connector, this connection, and that connection goes into the back into the harness, and then all the way up through the comfort control module. Now, I've checked the wiring from here to here, and it's good. Everything is great. It looks like we have some kind of a short between pin 5. Where is it? Yeah. Well, pin 20 here and pin 12 and 13 at the comfort control module. That would require me to do a proper repair, would require me to get in here and strip down all this wiring to follow those couple wires back over here and find where the short is. If it was more of a critical system, I would do it, but this is a gas cap door, and I don't know, other than personal satisfaction, it's not worth jumping in there to strip all this out to trace wiring to find what the break in the wire is. So I'm going to think about it for a second just to see if there's any way to track down this harness without having to remove like all of this. And if there isn't, then likely I'm just going to remove that gas flap door and make it a manual door like cars used to have, and many cars still have to this day. Well, folks, the truth is I would love to sit here and claim to be a phenomenal diagnostician. But the truth of the matter is, even though I traced all the circuits, I was able to identify all the wiring through the circuits, I confused myself trying to read data from CAN bus lines. There's these interior modules operate on a CAN bus system. You get high and low, and you should be able to take resistance and power measurements off of them, even with the DMM. And that's right now a little bit of beyond my expertise. I'm not quite sure what I was getting at. I almost got to the point where I thought there was a short in the lines, but it just didn't seem like it. And so I backtracked, and like I said before, I knew the motor at the flap door was good. I knew the switch was good. And I knew the comfort control module was good because I had an extra when we plugged it in, and it also didn't fix the problem. So the last main culprit was the door control module, which is this guy right here. This guy right here is the working one, the replacement. And this was the one that came off the car, and I think I mentioned it earlier. It has writing on it, so it came from a junkyard. It was a used part and was on the car. I don't know what the deal was with this, but it certainly failed. And this, other than a wiring short, this was the most likely culprit. And on the way home from work today, I stopped at the junkyard. Luckily, they had an 06 A4. I pulled this. Well, I pulled that one, and brought it home and test plugged it in. And sure enough, the button works. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall everything on the car, and hopefully everything will continue to work. And then I'll check back in with you. But sometimes you just get to the extent of your ability, and then you have to make a reasonable call on it. And I think I did that, and it worked out. Well, folks, that wasn't the smoothest process to get to where we needed to be, but applying some fundamentals and basics got us there, even though I'm clearly not an automotive electrical expert. But that's the point of the channel. Kind of do the fundamentals as best as you can, and most times it'll work out, and the times it doesn't, hopefully it's a learning experience. With that being said, I hope you learned something on this video. I hope it was entertaining, and if you don't mind giving me that thumbs up and consider subscribing. At the end of the day, our gas tank button works. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.